Yeah.
Hi.
Hey, Jesse. We'll need to wait for Angus to have a quorum, so I don't.
Yeah, I was thinking about what we should do about that, given that Bruce is out for 6 weeks, a month. What did he say?
A bit of time. I have.
Um, I was wondering. Well, I had a few thoughts, but because I think when we brought this up a month ago about the numbers, it sounded like it was pretty simple for the planning board to add and remove members to this subcommittee, right?
It
Like it's
could be,
just a
yeah.
simple vote. So
Right.
maybe we want to remove Bruce for the 2 months he's away, and that way, if it's just two of us, we could meet.
Right.
um,
Yeah, because Angus had sent some things around about the housing and the PRP. I had sent something. I think it's worth pursuing, and maybe, I was thinking even on the next planning board agenda, there's time to even just have it be a discussion point.
yeah, great.
Uh, yeah, yeah, 'cause I don't know. Um, I thought he would be here.
Yeah, I think it was planned to be,
Yeah.
but thought it was a reasonable article about the design standards in the Gazette. I don't know if you read it.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Didn't say a whole lot, but it was, is what it is.
Yeah. No, there's pretty good attendance at the open house. I think the planning board, had a good review. The CRC and Historical Commission and the commissions for persons with disabilities, that they're not going to see it until mid-April, but the DRB seen it. Yeah, I don't know. I'm curious to see how it goes. I feel like Dotson did a pretty good job of balancing a lot of different
Mhm.
perspectives, and can we just move the whole thing forward as a
So I was wondering process about that. Just for one example, the point Doug raised, I also feel very similarly about the west side of Kendrick Park.
right?
And like, if we didn't want to adopt the whole thing, what's the process for that? Does that have to go through all the boards? Like, if we wanted to say, well, we don't agree with this piece, let's change this zone to whatever.
Right.
Who has to approve that?
Yeah, I think
And I mean,
it's
we
a it's
collectively, not just we, the planning board. Like,
right. That's a good question. It's almost like I think the planning board should develop its recommendations, and then it's really, up to, let's say, staff and Dodson to determine how much would they change the standards, or would they note that there's, the planning board has, say these strong recommendations, and maybe so they provide us the document, and then it's right up to the town, however, to move it forward,
right.
so
Or
it's,
or could the town sort of adopt it as a guide, not
yeah,
as
yeah,
the letter of the law, right?
yes, yeah.
So that sort of like a master plan, like we refer to it as the guidance, but not, you know, necessarily have to do every single thing.
Right. No, I agree. That could happen, or it could be like, well, we really want to actually change the zoning districts,
Mhm.
and we're going to really try for that. Um, I actually think that parts of it could be adopted, you know, relatively, depending on how much we think it would change, but say later this year or summer, into the planning board rules and regs.
Yeah,
So, the planning board could say we like, these parts of the volumes, and
yeah.
if they haven't changed much. Oh, Angus is here as a So yeah, I think there's a few different ways. I do think to achieve, everything they want, it is there's a lot of different zoning changes.
Yeah.
And
And
so, it's not just the dimensional standards, it's, maybe some uses and
yeah.
yeah.
Okay. We were just chatting as not official. Now that you're here, we can start the meeting. Uh, so we need to click a button, right?
I sorry, I was already live because
Oh
I
my gosh, I shouldn't have said all those things.
yeah.
I'm just kidding. All right. Welcome everybody to Thursday, March 26th, 2026 meeting of the Housing and Zoning Subcommittee of the Amherst Planning Board. It is 11:38. start with a roll call attendance. Um, let's see. Angus McLeod, you go first.
Present.
Fred Harwell.
Fred Harwell is present.
Jesse Major, I'm present. And Bruce Coldham is absent as expected. Great. Um, Announcements. One thing I just brought up that I want to discuss a little further was about our committee membership. Since we know Bruce is out for a while, I was going to suggest that maybe at planning board, we ask for a vote to remove him from the committee membership. That way, if it's just two of us, we could still have a meeting and just temporarily. And obviously when he comes back, we could vote him back onto the meeting because I think it's some good number of weeks he's out. I think it will cover the next 2 or 3 of our meetings. So unless we all are sure we can make it, then it doesn't matter. Either of you two have thoughts about that? I mean, are you planning to make the meetings? If you are, then maybe it doesn't matter.
I think it's a good idea just to give some flexibility. You could also see if Jera is interested in being temporarily on it, because I know he's been interested, but then had a baby, and
Yeah.
then, but now the baby's older, so
yeah, it's a whole 2 months older.
yeah,
no problem. Okay, well, I'll pull up the dates and I'll check with Bruce about when he's actually on, and we can decide maybe at planning board if it makes sense, or just through an email or something. I once again failed to send around minutes for review, so apologies on that. No minutes to approve, but the drafts are still there for the public, even though there's no public here. Okay, so unless anyone else has announcements, we can just dive in. Don't see any hands. So maybe, Nate, you want to just guide us? What would be most useful to talk about first? Maybe the PRP pieces you two sent around. You tell me if there's some other order you'd like to go in.
No, I think that's good. I didn't include we had the zoning priorities and I took off the student piece. I feel like between the subcommittee and the planning board and staff discussions, we have a lot of questions. And so, we are reaching out to town attorneys and we're trying to do a little research on our own. Bruce reached out to State College, PA. So, I think it's been helpful to have that, that feedback and some of those questions and scenarios. So, I don't know, it might take a while to get a response or get some traction, but at least we have big picture ideas and then specific questions, which I think are helpful. So, that's great. I think we could go right to housing in the PRP and jump the other ones for now. I will say, I think there's, in the planning board kind of timeline, and that was looked at was trying to get some housing in the PRP zoning amendment moving. Maybe try to get it referred to council by the end of May. And I still think that could be possible. And, there's a few different ways to do it. So, I had proposed an overlay, which had been sent around and, kind of modeled a little bit after the structure after the University Drive overlay with different, uses and a few things. There's still a lot of questions there. I shared it with the building commissioner, and Angus had taken a different approach of saying, well, do we need an overlay? Could we, could achieve the same thing, but then go through different sections of the zoning bylaw and make changes. And so, I just quickly the overlay doesn't change the base zone, and it's consolidated as one section in the bylaw, and so you can kind of say, well, this supersedes any other sections in terms of, say, dimensional things if it's the uses in the overlay. And then you can do things like remove the cap on number of apartment buildings so it doesn't apply elsewhere, just in the overlay. You can kind of do that without having an overlay. So, I think there's probably a few different approaches there. And then, so what Angus has done is, it's kind of tedious. It's like you have to change, like a dozen different sections in the bylaw because we reference the PRP zoning, in, like every article.
Yeah.
And I think, I just quickly for everyone, Angus, you have also recommended combining office park, which I think the only office park properties are on University Drive. I think there's maybe
hmm
two properties. And so I think as part of this discussion, staff would probably recommend actually changing that to BL, limited business,
Oh,
because there's limited
sure.
business just north of it and maybe even adjacent to it, and then also on the other side of
hmm
University Drive. And so we think that in terms of it's, where it's located geographically, the BL makes more sense. And then the PRPs are, they're the way they're positioned, like North Amherst, East Amherst, and I'll call it like West Amherst, um, a little different kind of character there. And so I think that maybe moving forward, it's like if we like housing in the PRP, maybe it's not an overlay, but maybe as part of this, now there's this other amendment to do a map change, like what happened with the BN on Main Street. There's two properties on University Drive. You could say as part of it, we looked at making it PRP, but we actually think maybe another approach would be BL. And so then there's these two amendments that could move forward as part of this.
Yeah, I was thinking about strategically also. I would tend to lean actually to Angus's
Mhm.
work if all else were equal in terms of getting it through to the next step and potential approval. I'd lean on you, Nate, for helping us make that decision. Meaning, if there's 18 documents to look at, even though they're minor changes, is that going to delay the process simply because all the stakeholders would want to pick at all the documents? Or have you seen things in the past where that's not happened and everyone understands it's just like a subtle language change that's repeated over and over again versus the overlay, because overlay just complicates our zoning in some sense, right? My other big thought about it was, well, are we a year away from the whole Dotson and Flinker potential changing zones? And then does it not matter either way for the moment? We should just do whatever is quicker, because then that's an opportunity to make the actual bylaw changes if there are going to be other changes. I think I said that correctly.
Yeah, I don't, I think both, strategies will have a lot of discussion. When I went through Angus, your documents, like a lot of it was really minor, so it's necessary, um, but I think it could be explained. And so, even if we had the overlay, some of it would be we might still have to go to those other sections and still remove text because all of a sudden it'd be confusing. Someone would be looking in section 5 and then say,
Right.
oh, I see this lot coverage or this accessory use here. And then what we may have to do is then if we say had the overlay, you might have to be, either we remove it or we'd say like see section 19 for more information or something. And then, it's like, so I,
Yeah.
I feel like we'd have to cross-reference enough to,
Right. So
so,
then I would, as your hand, Fred, give 1 second. So then I would lean towards doing all of the pieces and then
mhm,
maybe just assembling in the justification document. Here's a list of all the documents. Here's the very
right,
specific language that's changed, so
right,
that
yeah,
whoever, a council member, doesn't have to open every document.
right, yeah,
They're just looking at the summary to see all the changes.
mhm, yeah,
Fred, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm on balance, I'm in favor of simplifying the bylaw. So I think the best approach is to actually change the language and not deal with another overlay. So, and I think that it can all be part of a single discussion. This does not seem like heavy lifting.
yeah. And I just quickly, Jesse, to your other point, I think we should, like I said, I think this can try to be moved quickly. I think the Dodson piece, we're asking for public comment into July and then, some revisions and then maybe another round of kind of public engagement. And so, you know, like I said, if in my ideal world, this gets reviewed by the planning board in April and maybe early May, and it maybe gets voted to be referred
Yeah.
in May, just so that, I think Angus has done, started the work. And so to me, it's like, it's not necessarily hard technically to change the language. It's like, okay, well, what exactly do we want to do? Does it make sense? And, is it defensible or, what are the reasons why? And so it's kind of getting all that information.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. Oh, I didn't mean to leave this alone until the
right.
open
Okay.
study. I just meant, is the overlay a lot easier to accomplish and be quicker? But I think we just said it's not. So
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
I don't think it matters. Okay. Do you want to look at what you put in the overlay? Because I assume some of that will, even if we use the idea of changing all the language, or what, or should we just look at Angus's language? Did you guys collaborate on that or yet or not?
Uh, No,
Most of the changes that I made to the overlay were trying to figure out, or changes to the uh, bylaw itself were based on things that Nate did with the overlay. So there's a few things that I think would be challenging to do that Nate was trying to do in the overlay that would be hard to do in the actual zoning, but most of it would be able to be accomplished. And so I changed the language to try and accomplish those overlay goals.
Yeah.
yeah, I think I'll share my screen with the overlay just to show where am I? The I'll make this a little larger. I think what I had done is have a just a general description and purpose. And so really it was to allow, you know, kind of three residential use types. So apartments, mixed use buildings, and cottage style housing. And then, having some dimensional standards and design guidelines that, like I said, I kind of use some of the ideas from University Drive overlay that can always be changed. I think the purpose was taken from parts of the bylaw, and we could even, again, like I said, take some of this and put it into what we're proposing in the different sections that is relevant. So this could go into like the Article 3, and we don't need to establish a new district. I think one of the points that Angus had mentioned is, um, with apartments, the only, I don't want to say the only, but the one big change is that I wasn't having a cap on the number of units in a building. So, taking the definition we have and just saying it's a one building containing no fewer than three dwelling units, and then just saying, this is clearly saying we could have more than one building on a property, and then this is already part of the definition, clarifying that parking may be allowed on the first floor. And so, without an overlay, if we change this definition, then that changes anywhere apartments are allowed,
Right.
and there may be ways to qualify it. So that's the thing to look at. Mixed use building, the big one was I was trying to get down to I kind of preferred this. A minimum of 15% of the first or ground floor would be the mixed use piece. Given the nature of the PRP zones in the kind of the small development area, given like wetlands and topography, I'm not sure there's actually going to be many new roads. And so if we said like 75% of the street facing facade, there's actually may not be a lot of street facing facades because it's going to be kind of development that's internal to these, we'd call them just like driveways or access roads. So I was thinking some percentage would be better. Again, that could be accomplished by changing the conditions within the existing bylaw. The big one was this cottage style housing. And this is something we have discussed elsewhere in town, applying it elsewhere. And I was thinking to myself, well, what if we just try to get it going here? And so this is, something that we can always discuss, a combination of single family units, duplexes, and townhouses on a single property up to, 15 units an acre. And then I had some examples around town, like 180 Fearing, Olympia Oaks, community homes in North Amherst are similar.
Do you mean this as a way to get this definition in our bylaw? Is that what you're
Well,
suggesting?
in the overlay, this would have only applied in the overlay.
Right, but that's not, is it in the bylaw currently?
No.
Right, that's what I mean. Are you just seeing this as a way to get the different definition in there so that
So
if we bring it back, it's not, and here's a new thing.
yeah, I'd be curious to hear thoughts. I mean, it could be that we define it and we say it's allowed and now in the PRP,
Mhm.
and then maybe it goes somewhere else elsewhere. I don't know yet. So it's just, I don't know if we like the definition. I was just trying to come up with a different housing type. So, apartments and mixed use buildings, we might just see, you know, 20, 30, 40, whatever, how many units per building. Here, it's just a different housing type. Maybe then it's geared towards different, demographics or audiences or end users. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
Just,
Yeah.
it's just an idea.
What's the 15 unit per acre? I have trouble visualizing that.
Sure.
Is that a standard elsewhere? Like what's that based on?
It was so like a 180 Fearing, if you like take the whole property, because there's more open space than property,
Yeah.
you could say I think it was like 11 units an acre. If you actually take what was their developable area, I think it's around that number. Same with Olympia Oaks is, say it's like 42 units on 5 acres or, whatever. And so I was just looking, I found some other projects, elsewhere in other communities where it was anywhere from like 15 to 20. I thought 15 was reasonable to get enough density to make it attractive because, someone could say, well, I can put in an apartment building, I could do 40 units an acre. And
Yeah,
so,
yeah. One comment, and then Angus, I see your hand. I'd be curious to know, as I raised a couple of meetings ago, I think, idea of changing things around the perimeter of UMass
mhm.
properties. I'd be curious to know if that standard, or I'd like us to get to a standard that maybe could then be just allowed in those areas too. That wouldn't be too much for those spots.
Right.
You know
Yeah.
what I'm saying?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think at one point I was debating having 20 units an acre, for instance, and it's a maximum and you may not get there. So, I don't, this can be reworked or ground truth a little bit. Yep.
Sure. Angus, go ahead.
Yeah, this is I noted to Nate when I sent this over that this cottage style housing is the thing that I can't do through the regular zoning change unless we actually create a new use. Um I think what I did do is I changed the townhouse to or townhouses to instead of being no in the PRP to being site plan review. Um, but I'm actually not sure that we should want to encourage single family or duplexes in the PRP zones. I think my inclination is we can go denser in those places. And they're all well served by different bus routes. And the one in North Amherst is also well served by is really close to UMass. So, I would encourage us to. I like the idea of thinking about cottage style housing. I think we should be thinking about that. I think that's a bigger question that we shouldn't try to shoehorn in here. Although I like that Nate's thinking creatively.
Oh, okay. So then what if it's a separate amendment, Nate, just to put this definition in our bylaw? Maybe without tying it to a purpose right now. That won't
No, no, I think someone would be like, I'd want to then, where do you apply it? And maybe, we're already looking at it. So maybe we just, this gets carved off and this is, another piece. I know I kind of tend to agree with you, Angus, that, do we want to, that's why I was trying to get the units per acre. So yeah, so what if you did have a few single family homes, but then you also have quadplexes, which can be townhouses. And so you have a mix of like 1, 2s and 4s and 6s or something. But maybe that's more appropriate in other areas. So Angus, I guess, could you describe how you changed your uses? Because when I looked at the use chart, the Excel document, it was really hard. I feel like the changes I couldn't see them very well. And that's,
Yeah, I did it through track changes,
yeah,
and on Excel, track changes is a nightmare. So you have to go. It's not like Microsoft Word where you just show
right.
displayed track changes. You have to go through this kind of convoluted process that maybe I should have sent you an email about. That where you individually approve or decline the track change, and that's the only real way to see the changes. So can I share my screen? Is that a possibility?
I think so, yeah.
Uh,
If you can't, just let
so
me know.
let me pull it up.
I'm gonna see if I can.
So um, share sharing is not turned on. So I just sent a request.
Okay. Should be all set now.
Okay. Desktop one. Okay. Can everyone see the Excel document?
Yep.
Okay, so the goal here is to eliminate entirely the whole column of OP.
Mhm.
Is there a way to, sorry, just want to make it across. Okay. And so then we just have PRP. Um, so let me see if I can, uh, so it's under track changes, then accept or reject. And then, so the first one is here under mixed use building, change to SPR. Um, I'll either have to accept or reject it.
Or you just close it and then
One second. Let me
the
just
next one is.
I'm gonna duplicate this so that
Sure.
I've got it. Let me stop sharing because it's just confusing.
Yeah, so I think, so we had just modified the mixed use building standards, right, for outlying village centers. And to me, it's like, well, if we want to do it this way, we might then want to modify it in the PRP. So, we have like kind of the sub, we still have the use category, and then it's like now we could say in the PRP, and maybe we have a new condition about first floor space or whatever else we want to put in there if we want to make those changes.
So hopefully no one's like sick yet. Okay, so only so much you can fit on a screen. Okay, so yeah, so
Angus, if you
changing,
if you change the view from like you're in print layout,
yeah.
To
maybe it'll
normal.
just make it back to a regular table view. Where is that? I think it's under window, maybe.
Sorry, I think it's because I'm.
You have to
Oh my
close the
God.
dialog box, I think.
Oh,
So sorry, which one do you want? You want normal?
Normal
take
usually would
off
do
the
it.
page layout. Yeah,
That does it?
Yeah.
Right? Okay,
good.
great. Tools, track changes. Okay.
If you zoomed
So
in maybe to like 90%, if you can do
you don't
that.
like the
Sorry.
tiny? Okay. I mean, if you're
I
gonna
think
be
I need
demanding,
glasses, but
I
that
guess.
was
I just prepared like a recording of a presentation for an audience, assuming we'd be in a big room together, but then it got sent around for everybody to watch on their own computer. And so
Ah,
the slides were, I'm sure they were ridiculous because it was so small. Really annoying.
so as you can see, there's only 14 changes that I made to this use classification. And I didn't have the new language that we're using for mixed
right.
use building. So I couldn't
Mhm.
like part of in order to accomplish what Nate was trying to do with the overlay, we'd have to have a separate definition for mixed or a second explanation of how mixed use is different in PRP. But that wouldn't be that hard to do. We're already making changes to mixed use in these other village centers. Uh, right. So it's mixed use to site plan review.
Mhm.
It's apartments to site plan review. It is okay.
Townhouses.
Townhouse to site plan review.
Yep.
Can I make this smaller? There we go. It is, and so then the other changes that I made was things that are allowed in the OP, which is this red column, but are either basically trying to harmonize OP and PRP, which I think is small potatoes. So nonprofit human use to site plan review, uh, for-profit hospital. We wouldn't have to make these changes if Nate's idea of just eliminating OP by moving those two properties into BL, then we wouldn't actually have to make these changes. This was to try and make it so that anything allowed in OP would
Right.
also be allowed in PRP. But all of these, I think, are consistent with our vision for PRP anyway. So that's special permit for theater, motion picture house, bowling alley, dance hall, arcade, or other indoor commercial amusement or assembly use. Anyway, office uses, site plan review, medical uses, medical office, site plan review for medical group practice, medical center, and clinic or emergency care facility. So this is all the stuff that is currently the office park, right? Which is weird to me, at least. Medical marijuana treatment center would be special permit, and then offsite medical marijuana dispensary, special permit. And then this one is craft marijuana cultivator cooperative and marijuana cultivator. And I think that's it. Those are the only changes. But again, we would probably be doing a change for how we're describing mixed use building so that we're allowing these smaller commercial percentages on the ground floor in PRP. And then we may want to change apartment as well to allow for larger apartment complexes in the way that Nate was trying to do in the overlay.
If we change apartments, that'll need to be like a new definition just for this.
That's one option. I think the other option, and we've talked about this, this I think goes back to the cottage style housing too.
Yeah.
We've talked about making a larger zoning change to apartment definitions and to creating a use classification for cottage style housing. But those are maybe two separate things. So we could also leave the apartments unchanged right now, and revisit trying to raise the cap in a bunch of different zones
I
all at
was just
once.
thinking the same thing, because
Yeah,
this feels like no one's gonna object to this.
right.
And so why not present it as this? I mean, Nate, you know better than we do, but like, feels like there won't be a very lengthy discussion or objection to what Angus just showed us. It's really just simplifying things that are not used at all.
I
Maybe
mean,
use
the other thing that I'll just show you all, let me see if I can pull it up. That Nate, oh, that's the wrong document. So the other thing that I did, and then of course there's minor language changes to the actual bylaw itself,
All right.
mostly like eliminating the words office park everywhere that I can. I mean everywhere it exists. There's also, why can't I? This is the dimensional regulations.
Mhm.
And so you can see I eliminated everything in the OP column here. I'm sorry I can't make this bigger, but and then changed the PRP to reflect what Nate was trying to do
Right.
in the overlay. So increasing the maximum floors, increasing the building height, lot coverage, building coverage, all of these are changes. There's no additional lot area currently because there's no residential allowed, but so leaving that as is. And then dropping the basic minimum lot area to 12,000 square feet, which is pretty small. So, and the only difference here from what Nate did, Nate tried, there's a special requirement in the PRP about encroachment on residential areas. So there's like a 75-foot buffer currently. Is that right, Nate?
It can be bigger, but yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, right. A minimum buffer of 75 feet. So I left that I shrank that. Well, so Nate's idea was making it actually a bigger buffer than it currently is because we'd be adding residential. But I left the buffer that is currently in the PRP language there, but that's not on this document. But
Yeah, so elsewhere in the bylaw, we say, at one point the idea of what was happening in the PRP might not be, harmonious with the residential uses nearby. So we're trying to establish minimum side and rear yards and then like these buffers, which may or may not be necessary still. So I think, those are, in like I said, 4 different sections in the bylaw. So I think, Jesse, to your point, I think what Angus has done, yes, I think my notes were for the mixed use, having a different kind of condition of the first floor percentage in the PRP. So I've talked to a few developers and property owners, and they, like 10 or 15% or something like that. Again, it's a minimum. It can always be more. And then they still, I think we would want to change, like you did, Angus, some of the uses allowed now in the PRP. So for instance, if you did a mixed use building, like the retail uses aren't allowed in PRP. And so, you wouldn't be able to get, you'd have to do like some other kind of office space.
Yeah, but we do want them included.
We do. For apartments, I don't know if you could have a condition that lifts the cap. It's in the definition. So if we just allow apartments, I mean, I don't want to say it's easy, but essentially you could, have some kind of separation so that it might look like one building, but by building code, it's two. So maybe that's not a concern. For townhouses right now, we limit the number of units in a townhouse to 10. So that, if you have like a row of townhouses, you can't have more than 10, and maybe that's okay too. Um, and so then, yeah, so then, like what Angus, what you've done is, we're not changing, and maybe that we don't change the definitions, we change the condition for mixed use buildings, and then we change some of the dimensional standards. Yeah, and I agree, Jesse. I don't think I think there's a lot of changes, places where it's changed in the bylaw, but it's pretty simple to explain.
Mhm.
I I would say people would agree with it. I don't know. I'm not,
So the other way to think about it is, yeah, maybe we go with a simple plan. We don't try and change, we don't try to change apartments, we don't try and add cottage style. It gets approved. Let's imagine it's gonna take 18 months until we can change apartment definition and cottage style. Someone comes along and they want to do this. With the simple change version, the maximum that would be allowed, is that really limited on these properties? Like, would it hamstring a developer? Would it not be attractive because it's really not enough density to make it worthwhile? Or the potential for these lots is really what I'm thinking about.
Right.
So if that's true, that without these other changes, it wouldn't be very much incentive. Maybe we need to go at it altogether.
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, for instance, if we lift the cap on apartments, like, are we willing to say we're okay with an 80 unit, 50 unit, I don't know, 100 unit apartment building? Or is it okay that, maybe they do a mixed use building and then they could still do some smaller apartment buildings?
Yeah.
Because I know North Square has had difficulty filling the commercial, but I could see where, say there's 5 to 8 acres of space in a few different PRP areas. It's like, could that be a development that actually has, a few mixed use buildings and has some, some space that could be used by the public? I think when we talked with North Amherst, Bruce has said, oh, if we really had this density, it'd be great if there was like a yoga studio and a coffee shop. And, if it serves like the residents of the building, we can kind of say it's, it's an accessory to the apartment building. But if it's something more open to the public, it essentially becomes a mixed use building the way we define it. And
So I
so,
have to take us on a little tangent because it's relevant to the conversation. What I was asking Dodson and Flinker about, Nate, I'd love your opinion, or if you know how we can get more educated opinion about this, which is why is it difficult to fill the commercial spaces? I mean, my naive take on it is because they're new, they're expensive, and they're big. And the other piece I see, which I said at the planning board, was we lost 15 small businesses, which were just fine. So where did they go? Did they all just fold? The question is there really no market for small commercial spaces? Because that's what they were sort of saying in response to my question. Do you have insight into that? Does anyone have insight into that? How do we educate ourselves about that?
yeah, I think there's probably a number of reasons. The businesses at the carrot shops. I know the carrot shops the rent was, held low by the owner because I think they acknowledged that the spaces weren't, new. So I do think there's a cost to new construction. I don't, I also realize that if you have a mixed use building and everyone says, well, the rental units will subsidize the commercial space, then you can charge very little for your commercial space.
If you're willing to, yeah.
If you're willing to. And maybe it's that, with these new buildings, it is harder to design these little spaces because, maybe it's more to change to a big space. And so they don't want to actually build it as these smaller spaces.
But like the rents in the new buildings, for example, how do they compare to the other rents in the middle of town?
Right.
Are they much more per square foot? I just have no insight into that. Do you have any idea?
I don't know. I've heard that, I think it varies wildly. I think in downtown it can actually be very expensive.
Yeah.
But if you're say in the East Village Center, which isn't too far away, I think it can be quite a bit lower. Except for new construction, and all of a sudden the building is, more expensive.
Yeah.
I think it's, maybe they don't want someone builds a new building, they don't want 7 different small stores. That's maybe not the image they want. It's not the kind of businesses that they want.
Right, but I think I would hope that is what we want for our town. But
Right.
That's a broader discussion, right?
Yeah. No, I don't have a great answer. I know, with Jeff on board, we're trying to actually do some more kind of analysis, like you're just asking, Jesse, kind of baseline data information, and then kind of looking at trends and things. Like I've even thought, if you have a bigger building, a big mixed use space, first floor space, like could it just be almost like a consortium space where it could be a number of businesses that use it?
Yeah.
But
last comment I'll make, and then we can get back to the topic at hand. A colleague of mine was talking about, I think it was in Seattle, they had pretty aggressive, I don't know if it was zoning or other tax incentives or something, to help small businesses get into the buildings. And it was basically subsidized by the city. It was a very successful program. This is what I was told. I don't actually know any details, but it really made me think, would something like that have legs in in the valley in Amherst specifically? Maybe the answer is no, but just putting it out there.
You said, yeah, that was Seattle.
I think so. They sent me a link a long time ago. I'll dig it up and I'll send it to you.
You know, that's great. Just quickly, yeah, because the article you sent Jesse about State College, they're it's like the regulations were effective, right? So now all of a sudden they have these taller buildings downtown. But in the article, they kind of said, well, we hadn't really thought of like how to actually build out the mixed use space or dimensional standards. And so I think everyone's surprised that they're getting like 10-story buildings.
Yeah.
I think it's probably because they hadn't had much development, so they didn't really have um, great, criteria or standards. And so now they're trying to put those in place. Um, yeah, I don't, I've always been a little surprised actually when you have existing businesses and then you have a new building that they don't come back. And I think it is the cost. Some just move. I know, say some of the smaller ones with the carrot shops, they may have moved out of Amherst or maybe they're a home-based business now, which we allow. So, if they don't have to go rent a space, but they can convert something that they already have, or maybe rent a smaller space, outside of the downtown.
Yeah.
Yeah. But
Okay. Anyway, let's circle back to where we're talking about like, the mixed
yeah,
use building and if we want to change that or how can we change that
no,
requirement?
I think it's relevant. And so that's where I think like a 10 or 15% in the PRP would make sense.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't want to waiver or anything. It's just like have a minimum. So, someone does a 15,000 square foot building, if you have 10%, I don't know. I don't know actually what the right number is, but 5,000 square foot building. I'm just trying to think about what is kind of, you
Yeah.
know,
Um, could it be, I mean, the issue you're bringing up is about frontage not being in place.
yeah,
Could it be something like, if frontage is X% is less than X%, then you need to meet this other percentage. Or
yeah,
is that overcomplicating it? Maybe what you're saying is better, just
yeah,
minimum 15%. Or
yeah. I think some of it would be that, say, for instance, the PRP off Belchertown Road and Larkspur Drive. The Belchertown Road isn't really great frontage, and the Larkspur Drive maybe has a little bit. But for instance, if you had a development on Larkspur Drive, it might be okay, but I don't know if you'd actually want buildings, say, that have quote frontage facing Belchertown Road to have the shops facing Belchertown Road. Maybe
right,
it'd actually be
maybe
better.
it's not instead.
Yeah, like if the site design was that, like the buildings are like, the gable ends are on Belchertown Road and they face each other, so there's more like a central courtyard. That's where it gets tricky saying the requirement facing the right of way. But
Okay, so yeah, then I'd be in favor of just doing a lower percentage.
and maybe we have some additional qualifications, like, right, if feasible, develop a courtyard, or I don't, there's probably ways to, there are probably will be language we could use.
Yeah,
Um, yeah,
but this will need to be a specific now for PRP. Would we
right.
try and add that in our simplified approach for our go with all the small changes? Would we include that, or that would be a separate piece?
It would be a separate piece. So I'm just pulling up the
So first amendment to the bylaws is what Angus just showed us.
right.
Second amendment, maybe we can get it done as quickly, is in PRP to change the definition or a new definition for mixed use building, right?
I think it would be something like this. Whoops, jumped it. Here, this is what the change had been. So we say in the general business, these conditions apply. And they say in these districts, these apply. And so then we have another few lines right in between, right in here, and we say in the PRP zoning district,
Yeah, sure.
whatever. And then we can say in all zoning districts, if we want to keep these or not. So, I think that's how it would work. It wouldn't, the reason why we can do this is the definition of a mixed use building in Article 12 is really simple. It just says a mixed use building is a building containing one or more dwelling units in combination with permitted non-residential uses. And so, we don't have any other standards in that definition. And so that allows us to put them in the use chart here.
Yeah, great.
Yeah. All right. And then apartments. So we're okay. We would just allow them. I like site plan review. We don't change the definition of unit count or anything. And we keep townhouses the way they are as well.
Yeah, I would leave that for a next round,
Yeah.
bigger picture thinking maybe.
All right. I think, yeah, I mean, I think that is all makes sense. I think the dimensional standards will be something, Angus, we can, I had proposed small lots. I don't know if we need that actually in the PRP. Y-
Smaller
you know,
is always better, in my opinion.
yeah. And so, if we like this, it's like, well, I think we could, Angus, I think we would probably take your documents and we would include them in the planning board packet for April 8th. And, then I'd,
I,
you know,
I do think you should make a summary,
yeah.
of the changes in one Word document.
Hmm.
Nate, is it possible for me to meet with you to talk through this briefly?
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, because there's just a few things from the overlay that I want to make sure that I'm not missing. Um, and then I'm happy to type up an overview of what I did, and then it also sounds like Nate, you'd like to chat about a few other use classification changes that I didn't include around retail and stuff.
Yeah, possibly. I think if we're allowing mixed use buildings in the PRP, for instance, if we say, oh, it'd be great if
Yeah,
we had this kind of development, oh, we would want a coffee shop. I don't think that's allowed right now.
yeah, for
Yeah.
sure. No,
So,
I was looking
yeah,
at it. You're right. It's
right.
there's like nothing.
Angus, I don't think if you're ready for that conversation, I think it's fine to do that now. If you're not ready, you guys can meet separately.
Well, I don't know. Is it a good use of the committee's time?
I feel like it is in this theme of trying to move things quickly. I don't know. Were there other pieces, Nate, you felt like we should spend some time on today specifically?
We had the cottage style housing, the traditional neighborhood subdivision, the North Amherst overlay, which I think we've talked about. I don't think they're as, I don't say urgent, but I mean, I think this would
No,
be something I'd want to try to actually, like I said, have the planning board bring,
yeah.
in
I'm,
the next two meetings, get them really comfortable with it.
I'm very much on board with your idea, Nate, of trying to get pieces moving,
Yeah.
small pieces quickly. So, yeah, I think it is fine use of our time.
Yeah. I mean, Angus, if you want to share your screen, the subcommittee can
Sure.
just look at a few pieces, a few areas and
Okay.
yeah.
So the first one is the what I was just, oh, for God's sake. Uh, what I was showing you all earlier around the use tables. So um the thing that would be helpful, I think it's down here. Um uh oh, and it's still in the, okay. There
Are you
we
looking at
go.
like what kind of uses would be allowed?
Yes. So this is asking you all for thoughts on changing. Oh, here we go. So retail, business, and consumer. So this is for PRP. So that would be a SPR, right?
Yep.
Okay. Then convenience stores. SPR, SP.
Yeah. I'm just looking at the actual,
Sorry, this is
yeah,
literally what I had to do. So
no, it's fine. So what, what this isn't showing is that, in this, there's text in the, right after
right.
the
Let me
definition.
pull this down here.
So we have these conditions. And I think what we could do is, um, for like instance, I think all these could be site plan review, and then we can have a condition and we'd say, I feel like we could say something that like in the PRP, this use would be allowed only in a mixed use building. So someone couldn't just come in and do a retail store. And so that's what we'd say for all of these. I think, so if someone wants to do like a little deli, sure, it's a site plan review now, with the condition that it is, part of a mixed use building.
This would essentially say, oh,
Yeah, I know. So I think Angus has just realizes that we have 25 different documents that make up our zoning bylaw, a few Excel charts and Word documents that staff then combines every time we make a change.
um,
So I think for the retail, even for personal care establishments, we have like barber and beauty shop, hair salon, laundry or dry cleaning shop, tailor, garment maker, milliner, cobbler, or other shop for the repair, manufacture of sale or clothing or footwear. So that's like the next section. And then the next section is food and drink in the bylaw, like restaurant, cafe, which maybe would be site plan review, but I think the retail establishments like personal care and then just the first restaurant to me could all be site plan review in the PRP with the condition that it be part of a mixed use building. Um, I mean, that's just my suggestion. I don't,
Is this the language that would work?
yeah, like shall will be allowed, or should be shall be allowed, shall, or something. Yeah, or I'm sure the staff will have other ideas, but um, because right now, right,
But is Nate, is this use an okay phrasing as
yeah,
opposed to retail stores? Like, do I need to actually say what the use is each time?
the way we have our conditions is after each subcategory, so it's like you'd have to add a line under like,
Right, but what I'm asking is, can I just copy and paste this same line
oh yeah,
multiple
yeah,
times?
yes,
Okay. Or
yeah,
does it need to say the actual use?
no, no,
Okay.
yeah, I'd have this generic line repeated like 7 times now,
Okay.
For personal care establishments and for the first restaurant.
Okay. So if we can just then I'll go back in later and make the changes, but you're saying do it for convenience stores, grocery,
Yep.
barber,
Hmm.
laundry,
Yep.
tailor,
And then that first
restaurant.
restaurant. Yep.
Okay.
And then
And
in
then
off,
not these.
no.
Okay,
And
leave
then in
them. Okay.
office use is further down. We have like a
Yeah.
bank, loan agency, real estate office. I
Okay.
mean, oh, I don't know. Do we want those? What do you,
It's
or do we
currently
want?
site plan review.
No, it's currently no in the PRP.
Oh, I'm sorry. I guess I changed it to site plan review. Sorry.
Do we want to encourage kind of more of the kind of pedestrian consumer business, you know, as opposed to say like an office?
I, I don't know. I'm mixed about that.
All right, so maybe highlight that too, Angus, and that can be,
Okay.
yeah, no, I think so. These are, this would be the start, right? So we'd say, okay, we're going to allow mixed use buildings now in the PRP, and those, as part of this, we're going to change those, 7 use classifications. So we're going to change their permitting in the PRP with this footnote that really it only is these are only allowed in as part of a mixed use building in the PRP. So now they're going to be site plan review uses. Yeah. All right.
Okay, great. So then that gives me a sense of what to do there. The other let me stop sharing. Then this document has the things that I was struggling to do. So this is Nate's overlay document that I was using as the model for making changes to the actual zoning. So I don't think that this wouldn't matter, right, Nate?
No, not anymore.
Okay,
Yeah.
great.
Yeah.
Okay. Then definitions. I wasn't sure about this. More than one apartment building may be located on the same lot. Is that currently allowed, Nate?
It is. I was just trying to
Yeah.
be really clear. So
Okay.
that's kind of a moot point.
Okay, great. Um, okay, I don't think we need to deal with that. And the same thing is true of this mixed use building thing. More than one mixed use building may be located on the same lot as well.
Um, Let me just, now that you said that. So the reason why apartments works is we say in the definition, like one or more buildings. And so it's clear that
Ah,
it could be more than one. For mixed use building, I think it's like the semantics of it. How are we calling mixed use buildings? We do allow more than one mixed use building on a property. Um, and it's because,
if we do, that's fine. I don't
yeah,
think we need
we
to.
do. Yeah.
Okay, great.
I was just trying to like emphasize it so that there isn't a
Yeah.
question. Yeah.
And so then the only thing that I can't do, Nate, is I can't make the changes to the mixed use stuff because I don't have that.
Sure.
in the Excel
All
document,
right.
but that's the only thing that
Yeah,
here I can't do.
that's all right.
The
Yep.
the cottage style we're not doing now, so I'll
Right.
delete that. But I did change the townhouse thing.
Hmm.
Um, and then I made all these dimensional change
Yeah.
standards, which I already showed you. Um, uh, and I uh kept these
Yeah.
sections. I didn't change them.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's okay.
And then we're not worrying about that cottage style. Um, we already said that that's possible, so we don't have to worry about that. Um,
And I think the big one is like now the kind of in Article 5 we have some of these accessory uses allowed in the PRP. So we, I think that might just be something that you have already attempted, Angus, and I think we can maybe it doesn't matter anymore because are we okay with that? Like someone can do a, you know, an accessory dwelling in a building or a research and development facility or childcare facility. I think the idea was originally with the PRP, it's like you might have this big office building and you'd actually need a childcare facility as part of the office building. And so we wrote in that you could have this childcare facility as an accessory use in the PRP.
yeah, my opinion when I was trying to make changes was to leave everything that is currently allowed in PRP still to be allowed in PRP and
Yep.
only broaden what can be allowed.
Okay.
So none of those need to be worried about. I wasn't sure. This is where things get a little more confusing. I wasn't sure where or how these could be changed, and I don't have. Let me just double check. I don't think I have. Well, I do have Article 7, but I couldn't see where I would make changes to it around. Sorry, let me just pull back up the. Oh, good Lord. In order to make these changes in parking regulations, and I think this is the last bit. Yeah, this is the only other thing that I wasn't sure how to do.
Yeah, I was just looking. Um, yeah. So I think the big piece there is we already don't allow, we have a flexibility in terms of residential uses, so we don't need two parking spaces that you need to provide. We have listed in the bylaw some other criteria. I think the bigger one was like shared or leased parking. Typically, you have to
Right.
have like 120% of your required minimum to do that. But I think we're okay, actually. Um, I think we could be okay if we um, this was taken from University Drive overlay where we basically said it's like there's no standards. And so what we try to write in was a few things that they need to provide in the overlay. So this is why this came from. But if we're relying on the bylaw, we have standards already in place. So I'm not sure I have to worry about it. Um,
Okay, that was the only thing that I was unsure of how
okay.
to what to do with that. So if nothing here actually requires changes in the bylaw, then that's it.
Yeah, I think, I think staff can look at it again as this moves and, matures a little bit. We can say, okay, how does the parking work? I think so. For instance, if someone is proposing an apartment building, we say two spaces unless the applicant can show that, you know, um, that you don't need that. And then we say such as, a traffic impact report or parking utilization studies or, access to public transit. And we list like, a dozen things in the bylaw already that they can use to try to show why they don't need two spaces per unit. So yeah.
Okay. Then yeah, the parking thing is the only thing that I think um would need the staff to look at again.
All right. And I think I put in at the end there was like design standards. Do we, we were talking about the downtown design standards earlier. Do we like some of those pieces and do we apply them to this now? So for instance, like would it be that if we liked the one zone in the downtown design standards, I don't even know what they're called, but like, say we'll call it just like village downtown or whatever. And we said, oh, we really like the way Dodson described the roof lines and the different changes in the facade. Do we, we can actually just take that language and put it somewhere for this or not. It's and then, so that was one. And then inclusionary zoning to me would still apply here. And one of my questions was, would we try to in the overlay, I was thinking we'd encourage that some of the units get up to 120% AMI. That's a bigger discussion. So, I was trying to throw a lot in there at one time, but I think the design standards might be something worth talking about.
I haven't thought about it in this context, but it's pretty, I mean, it's pretty small pieces we're talking about, right?
It is. I guess some of it would be, like
Kind
based
of
on,
like not,
yeah, but say someone comes in and they're like, oh, I'm just going to do a big box.
yeah, right.
Is that okay, or do we want to see like a little more articulation in terms of roof line, facade stuff? I don't.
Yeah, I would be in favor of having some standards, like,
Yeah.
yeah, I want to look at the those zones again, I think. And I do think it would make sense to start stealing pieces of that where appropriate.
I think, yeah, I think my preference would be to see what the whole planning board thinks if that's something we want to do. I worry about starting to draw on that material when it's not been approved in any capacity.
Yeah. Sure.
Um,
What
and then
about
and then
sorry, go ahead.
and I was just going to say, and these three regions are so in such different parts of town, and kind of in different ways outlying. I mean, the one on Route 9 is actually not very outlying at all. It's kind of in the thick of things, but then the other two are kind of on the outskirts. So I don't know which one
What
I'd
about
choose.
I was going to say, what about the standards we have for the University Drive overlay?
Yeah. So, I mean, it could be something like that where we say like if a facade length is so long, it has to be broken up by like
Yeah.
step backs. And so it wouldn't be necessarily taking, just to clarify with the Dotson piece, I was thinking that we wouldn't take like the whole section. It might be that we like four of the standards, say within the village downtown. So if we like the idea that fourth floor is under the roof, or you can't have a certain high, tall parapet, or your roof has to be a certain something, and so then we would just take that and make it like a one-liner kind of a condition here. So in the PRP, the following design standards apply, and it's like 1, 2, 3, 4, like kind of like what Jesse said. That's what we did with the University Drive overlay. We didn't have like extensive design um, standards. We basically said, right, if a long facade has to be broken up with step backs. There has to be a change in material above the first and upper floors, and just a few things that would help guide the permit, which is the planning board, the permit granting authority. And so I kind of agree, Jesse, kind of something similar in the PRP. So maybe
Yeah.
some standards that could help.
I mean, maybe for now, the strategic play is to literally take what's in the U Drive overlay, since everybody's agreed to that. Sort of, I mean, it's nothing new.
Right.
Where in the normal bylaw are design standards?
Well, in Article 3, they reference the design review principles. So that's where it would be.
Okay.
And then in Article 17, the U Drive overlay, we say things like overhanging awning and projected canopies are encouraged between the first and second floors on mixed-use buildings, as is a horizontal sign ban. The street-facing facade shall have variations in architectural detail, change in plane, or other treatment to break down the scale and mass of large flat facades. So that to me, it's like, they're not hard and fast. So it's not like, oh, you have to have a certain pitch roof. It's enough to me, if someone came to the planning board on University Drive right now and had, a building that was 200 feet long and it was just one big flat facade, we could say, actually, according to some of our design guidelines here, we want to see some different, we want to see the massing broken down a little bit, and it allows the board to do that. The design review principles don't necessarily, I think you can use them to say that, but I think the board has felt that they're not actually, it's more about like proportions and things, but if you have nothing around it, no context.
Yeah.
So I think I don't really I'm not sure how I would go about doing that. So maybe Nate, in addition to looking at parking, y'all could look at design guidelines language for the PRP.
Sure.
And then I have four quick things that I could show you all about other changes that I made.
Sure.
Okay. Let me pull up this one first. Oh, not raise hand. Share screen. Okay. Great. So this is Article 1 and 2. And this is the definition. I cut the definition of office park, and this is the new definition of PRP. Purpose of the PRP district is to provide an open and attractive environment for office, research, and low-intensity industrial activities, mixed-use buildings, and medium-density housing. The standards and regulations are intended to limit the types of uses and to provide for a clean, open, and quiet environment that allows for professional work, limited commercial use, and multifamily housing. So it's basically just adding housing and then also pulling in more of the office stuff from Office Park.
Yeah. I mean, the logic of what you did makes sense. It now sounds very schizophrenic. You know, it's like quiet office space and residential living. Like, we're I mean, I agree that's what we're creating, but
yeah. So that's that. Okay. Then Article 3. There was one question I had. Let me see if I can pull it up. I think it's down towards the bottom. This is for the Aquifer Recharge Protection Zone. So this is only applying to the PRP land that's off of Old Belchertown Road. There are maximum lot coverages that are different from what's normal for PRP. But my understanding is that this area now has sewage and water. So I don't know if we need these limits on land coverage, Nate. I think you're muted right now.
I don't think we do. I think we could remove these and explain why.
Okay.
Yeah.
So let me just delete comment, and then.
Okay, sorry, I was pulling up a map just to see it too.
Okay,
so
great.
Okay, yeah.
So, and again, I'll type up, an explanation of these different things. Great, that's that. Article 5 is the next one. Yep. The issue here is,
yeah.
But this is about manufacturing activity. I think we would need to provide an opt-out for the PRP because we're allowing some limited manufacturing in PRP currently, and if we're adding housing, that could be inconsistent. So the idea is here that we would have them both potentially able to happen closer to each other. Or what we do down here is may be permitted under a special permit granted by the special permit granting authority, authorized act, blah, blah, blah. So we could just kind of put that up in 5.0711 if we wanted to give an option. Or I don't know, maybe this isn't an issue, but it's covering the PRP. So that's why I flagged this.
No, I think it's good because what if someone has an apartment, say the changes are happen, someone puts an apartment building and then they want a manufacturing use. So let's yeah.
Is replicating that language of like however.
I think, yeah, I don't know if I'd want it. It may be that we just I don't know. I'm just.
Or maybe you and the staff can take a look at it.
Yeah.
Nate?
Yeah.
Okay.
I wrote that down.
Okay. 5.0711.
Yep.
Okay. Great. So I'm just gonna. That's that. And then the last one is Article 6. There's one thing, which is flag lots.
Flag lots. Yeah.
It currently includes Office Park. I think we could just, if your proposal is to move those two properties from Office Park to BL, then this isn't an issue. I just cut the OP designation.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So I think out of this discussion is the OP to BL and these number of changes throughout the bylaw to allow housing in PRP. So I think Jesse, I like what you've said is it's almost like Angus, you take we have the purpose. And we have like a intro paragraph and it's like, and here are the changes, in section 3, we're changing the purpose of the PRP district. And, if there's another change in section 3, and then it's like in section 4, we're doing this, in section 5. And then, that might be a page and a half summary, but that way people aren't like, having to scroll through these documents.
But I'll actually put, change 1, page this 3.2 point whatever, the old language, the new language.
Okay. Yeah.
So that nobody needs to go through the whole document is the point.
Okay. Yep. Yeah, no, that'd be really helpful.
Okay, I can do that.
Yeah, I mean, I think like Jesse, when I said I'm not sure everyone would agree with this, I think, I've received actually a lot of kind of, a few emails and calls saying people like the idea of housing in the PRP when I brought it up to the planning board a number of meetings ago. I hadn't said what that housing would look like.
Right.
And so now, people would be like, they might think that it was going to be small compact subdivisions. I think the reality is that so much of the land is not developable. It's almost like the trade-off is, well, if you have 50 acres, but you only have 10 acres that you can actually build on, if you allow single family homes, you're not going to get the density that might even incentivize
Yeah.
development.
I mean, maybe that point should be in the justification,
Right.
right? I
Yeah.
mean,
Yeah.
if whatever, I'm sure you have the actual number or estimate.
Yeah. No, it shrinks a lot. Just,
Okay, great. This feels very productive.
I actually
Thank
have
you,
to go
Angus.
in a couple
Yeah,
minutes, I'm
thank you.
afraid.
Thank you, Angus, for doing this work. I mean, it's
Yeah.
really good. Okay, then maybe let's just strategize together, or maybe Nate, you just tell us what's the next thing that we should think about for the next subcommittee meeting.
yeah, I think the cottage style or the small lot subdivision or smaller lots in general, Doug had kind of thrown out like, what about if we just change the lot size throughout town? But maybe those two are kind of are intertwined. And I think this housing, the PRP, like I said, I try to get out on the planning board April 8th agenda and actually have it be have some discussion time for it. And then this may come back too. Maybe there's tweaks, but really, I think the next two things would be the cottage style and the whether changing lot size or having a new subdivision method.
Okay. All right, let's have those
Great.
as
Yeah.
first things on the agenda next time. First two things. I'm just looking at my calendar. Do we not have another meeting scheduled? Let me find that email. Maybe I didn't go past March, in which case I will send out more dates.
Yeah. I actually don't see anything
Yeah,
going on
okay.
either.
I'll make sure I do that today or tomorrow,
All right.
so we can all be on the same page.
Yeah.
We're gonna assume this time block generally still good for everybody,
Yep.
Thursday,
Mhm. Yep.
11:31.
Yep.
All right, fantastic.
Yeah.
I guess we're adjourned unless no
Yeah.
one send us
Thanks,
other.
y'all.
Great,
Yeah, thanks, everyone.
thanks. Bye.